The headline right now, FBI Director James Comey not expected to find any criminal charges in this Hillary Clinton email server issue. Let's go straight to Ed O'Keefe. He's a politics reporter for The Washington Post, and he joins us now. Ed, you've been watching along with us. Your reaction to Director Comey's remarks?
Well, let's focus on the optics and the politics of this, because I'm no lawyer. I don't cover the Justice Department, and as the director rightly said, we shouldn't speculate about something we weren't directly involved in. But what he did here today, frankly, was genius, because it puts him on camera saying all these things about what the secretary and her staff did and the culture at the State Department. And there's no question now how he feels and how this investigation went. That video will probably be used over and over again by Republicans in the next few months, despite the fact that they made a decision not to press charges. And his decision to be transparent and open about it and make very clear that nobody at the White House knew about it, that the Attorney General didn't know about it, and that there were no outside influences, all designed to assuage the concerns, especially of Republicans who hold him in high regard. Comey's a pretty straight shooter. They like him up on Capitol Hill. Republicans have been saying all throughout this investigation, Comey will tell us what he decides to do, and I trust his judgment on this. And I think the fact that he came out today and did it with very little warning, a lot of suspense, again, all designed to make clear that he was totally independent of politics throughout, and the decision has been made.
And our Major Garrett is joining us now. Major, as you heard, there'll be no recommendation to the Justice Department that charges be filed, but there was plenty there that I think Hillary Clinton's opponents may be using in the future.
Well, the legal cloud of uncertainty has been lifted, but the political argument and the political prosecution of Hillary Clinton's judgment, what she did and didn't do, how wise or unwise it was, will continue. And you can be confident Donald Trump's campaign will raise that judgment question very directly. When the FBI director says that the handling of emails, security, classification was extremely careless, that in itself is a political indictment. It's not a legal charge, but it is something that carries a quite definite political sting. Now, I'm standing here in the north lawn of the White House, checking with the White House as to whether or not it will put together a statement in reaction to this. The advice and the guidance I've been given here at the White House is no. The president's not going to weigh on this. The first opportunity for any direct White House comment on what FBI Director Comey just told the nation will be when the president flies to North Carolina with Hillary Clinton aboard Air Force One. Either Josh Earnest, the press secretary, if he's traveling, or Deputy Press Secretary Eric Schultz will gaggle with reporters on that flight, and that'll be the first opportunity for the White House to weigh in on this. But every indication I get here at the White House is the president and those close to him will stand on the outside of this controversy, where they've liked to have been more or less throughout. But it is important to note, yes, there is a legal determination, and the Attorney General will follow that, which means, legally speaking, Hillary Clinton is in the clear. Politically speaking, that's far from the case.
Ed, similar question. Do you think this is going to, if not silence the critics, maybe reduce the volume?
Probably not, because, you know, now they have the FBI director on video saying all these things. What he did there was not a slap on the wrist. It was a slap on both her wrists, frankly, for the way that she comported herself and used email as the nation's top diplomat. And I think it was also a pretty searing public indictment of the State Department as well, which is involved in all these sensitive matters. Comey was not only really speaking there, I think, on behalf of his own investigators and his agency and doing his best to keep it above the political fray, but I think he was expressing a lot of the concern of professional government employees in this town who deal with this, who've seen colleagues prosecuted for lesser offenses and punished or demoted. And it's going to be very difficult, I think, for her, should she become commander-in-chief, really to be taken seriously in that regard by many people across this town. I covered the federal workforce for years, and the rank and file take this very seriously. And if they see a commander-in-chief who was doing these types of things, perhaps not illegally, but certainly still doing it and being cavalier about it, that's going to sting. So, you know, there will be repercussions, certainly not legal, but definitely political, and they will be long-lasting.
And our viewers are watching Hillary Clinton there now delivering some remarks. She was delivering those remarks as Director Comey was speaking. Major, one of the points that Director Comey made that I think a lot of people will find troubling, no matter which side of the aisle you're on, is the sending of personal emails on these unsecure servers in what Director Comey called hostile territories. And Director Comey could not say for certainty that in some of those instances, people with hostile intent would not have access to those emails.
That's right, because the evidence of a hostile attack by a hacker is not always visible. You can't do, or you can't always know if, in fact, a email system or server has been penetrated by a very sophisticated hacker, and those operating in the dark world of counterintelligence and intelligence and hacking in pursuit of both are very adept at those skills. That's point one. Point two, and this was a comment that Director Comey made a little bit earlier, he talked about the scrubbing of the emails by Clinton's lawyers. He said it wasn't absolutely clear that some of the emails that might have been work-related and might have been related to this investigation, were missed by those lawyers and missed by the FBI. So there is still some area of unknown about what was the content of some of those emails, because as the lawyers representing Hillary Clinton scrubbed them before they were sent on to the State Department, they may not have used adequate search terms. Director Comey said that is a very likely possibility. And then, therefore, the FBI, even though it was able to find other private emails that the lawyers did not turn over, may not have found all of them. So there are two other areas of concern where the questions will linger, and that is going to be a problem for Hillary Clinton. And it'll be fascinating for me, and I think probably Ed will agree with me on this, how Hillary Clinton and her campaign react to this. If they react to this like they've just scored a big touchdown and this thing is all over and they don't need to do any more explaining about this, that might be a miscalculation. I think there needs to be, from a political standpoint, something approaching a mea culpa on the part of the Clinton campaign, that this is a serious matter, and just because it wasn't grossly negligent and it wasn't intentional, therefore it wasn't in the specter or the ambit of a felony, that doesn't mean it wasn't serious. That doesn't mean there isn't something to be contrite about. And that doesn't mean if you become commander-in-chief, you are going to be indifferent to these underlying issues. That's a significant statement the FBI director made, and it will have real political resonance, and the longevity and the potency of that relevance, I think, will be determined in part by Hillary Clinton's reaction to it.
And Major, let me ask you a two-pronged question there. How do you think Donald Trump and his campaign will utilize this to their advantage? And what do you think the plane ride down there on Air Force One with President Obama will be like? I think it might be a bit awkward.
I don't think the plane ride will be awkward. It'll be all about politics. Look, the president is all in, if you will, on Hillary Clinton's behalf. North Carolina is a state not chosen by accident. North Carolina is a state Barack Obama won in 2008, narrowly lost in 2012. It's crucial to Hillary Clinton's electoral vote map. That first stop there is a way to suggest to North Carolina Democrats and independents that this campaign matters. It's been speculated, I think quite accurately, that President Obama on Hillary Clinton's behalf will be shuttling back and forth between Virginia and North Carolina to do everything he can to keep those two states, very important to Hillary Clinton's electoral map, alive and competitive. So I don't think the politics of that will be all that complicated. Vlad, restate your first question for me, because I got a little ways from that.
Donald Trump and his campaign,
right.
I mean, they've been going through a bit of a headache the last couple of days. How do you think they'll capitalize on this?
Yes, this could have been a clean opening for the Trump campaign, but it's not, because of the controversy the Trump campaign generated for itself over this weekend with a very controversial tweet that many saw as anti-Semitic or becoming somewhat close to anti-Semitism. They've had to try to clean that up, largely in ways that have been unsuccessful, because they had to take the tweet down, apologize for it, and try to back away from it. It will be interesting to see if Trump goes at James Comey, who, as Ed O'Keefe accurately said, is held in very high regard by Republicans, both conservative, moderate, and somewhat liberal. Comey is regarded as someone who is believable and credible on this matter. So if Trump says the whole system is rigged and everyone's in on it, that would implicate James Comey. He might not want to go down that road, because that would continue to strain his relationship with Republicans. But on the question of Hillary Clinton's judgment, I believe you will hear Donald Trump say again and again, extremely careless, quoting the FBI director about the underlying decisions Hillary Clinton made in this situation.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. Paula Reed is standing by. She's outside FBI headquarters right now. And Paula, you were inside during the press conference. Major Garrett just alluded to something that Comey had to say. He did not mince words when it came to the way he felt about the decision to use a series of private email servers and different devices. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Although we did not find clear evidence that Secretary Clinton or her colleagues intended to violate laws governing the handling of classified information, there is evidence that they were extremely careless in their handling of very sensitive, highly classified information. For example, 7 email chains concern matters that were classified at the top secret special access program at the time they were sent and received. Those chains involve Secretary Clinton both sending emails about those matters and receiving emails about those same matters. There is evidence to support a conclusion that any reasonable person in Secretary Clinton's position or in the position of those with whom she was corresponding about those matters should have known that an unclassified system was no place for that conversation.
Paula, you've been there for a number of press conferences. This one was a little different. James Comey did not take any questions. What stood out to you?
Well, the fact that he wouldn't take questions is a real problem when you invite dozens of reporters to come and discuss one of the most high-profile, one of the most controversial national security investigations in the U.S. It would seem that you should take some questions. Instead, he gave a 15-minute statement so that he could control the narrative, discuss what they found. And again, anyone who thinks that this is the end or a conclusion to this is not true. I mean, this announcement will continue to sort of spur a reaction from both sides. And again, it was a slap on the wrist. He said either you're careless, but he found no intentional, the legal standard, no intentional mishandling of classified information. For a lot of people, that's just not going to be satisfying.
Ed O'Keefe, who's joining us as well. Ed, let me ask you about the timing of Director Comey's statements today. Just coming off recently, the investigators from the FBI talking with Secretary Clinton, and now the fact that she will obviously be on the campaign trail today with President Obama. What do you make of that?
Well, remember, the FBI made clear that their timing had nothing to do with electoral politics, that they were going to do this at their own pace. And I think Paula would be better equipped to clarify this if it isn't entirely true. My understanding when it comes to these kinds of sensitive political investigations is that the Justice Department, the FBI, do actually try to avoid making big decisions around Election Day, at least, or key primary or political dates. And so in this case, clearing the decks before the conventions begin really in earnest next week for the Republicans. It's going to be a 2-week affair, basically, with all the issues that delegates will have to sort out beforehand. Allows them to sort of get out of the way and allow the politics to continue while the legal process, of course, is pretty much over. This has been underway for a year. It's been clouding her campaign. At this point, given that it's officially out of the way, if you're a fan of the Clinton campaign and you want her to win, you should hope that they sort of stop this streak of unforced errors, like the former president last week meeting with the Attorney General on the tarmac in Phoenix, because at this point, given the way polling is going, given the strength that the Democratic Party has on the ground in the key states, it does look like this is something that she could, it's hers to lose, basically. It's her presidential election to lose. So absent any other big stumbles, this could have been it. This could have cleared the way.
Ed, I'm sure you heard Major Garrett talk about, it'll be very interesting to see how the Clinton campaign responds to this moving forward. I think we can remember when this first really started to heat up last summer, she would repeatedly say over and over again that, she has nothing to apologize for.
Yeah.
That didn't really go over well, and the line started to change eventually, and she said, yeah, maybe I do have something to apologize for, but, what's your take, or what's your expectation in terms of how the Clinton campaign will respond, or what do you think will be the best way for them to respond?
She has to issue some kind of a formal apology, on camera. This setting today, a political rally in North Carolina with the president on her side, may not be the best way to do that, just given the optics of the environment of it all. But I think Major is right that you've got to come out again and give a very respectful and stern apology. Again, not only because it affects her political chances to be president, but I think it would affect her ability to be president. I think there are a lot of people, again, in this town and across the federal government, quite incensed about how this all happened and how it is that a woman who was charged with such sensitive and classified information would behave, as the FBI director said, so cavalierly in handling it on personal email. And I think, there are a lot of questions that remain to be answered. Where was she sending this stuff from? How many servers were there really? And how does she answer the charge now that while she said that she didn't knowingly send this kind of information, classified information, that in fact there was information that was classified tied up in all this? Those are questions that she would probably want to answer this week, again, in hopes of putting this behind her and being able to plow into the general election.
And Major Garrett, is this something that Secretary Clinton can put behind her if she does, as you suggest, and as Ed also suggests, she offers up sort of a mea culpa? We've got several months to go before the election. If she comes out and says, you know what, yeah, I agree with what Director Comey says, there was probably some poor judgment on my side, it wasn't intentional, didn't mean to do it, moving on to the problems that are facing the country. Is that something that she can get away from?
Well, look, Ed and I look at politics, and we've covered lots of campaigns. This is our sense about what you would do in this situation if you were a politician trying to solve or address a real political problem. The determination, the answer to your question, Vlad, will be rendered not by Ed or me, but by the voters, and what Hillary Clinton says or doesn't say, and how believable it is or it isn't. That's all coming attractions. We don't know what's going to happen. But it is a very real political problem for Hillary Clinton, not only for all the ground we've covered, but what we just heard the FBI director say. Any reasonable person would have known or should have known that the information in this case, that he referred to 7 email chains that were at the time top secret special access. People of reasonable approach to that question should have known and acted differently. That goes to judgment, reasonableness, and it sort of undercuts one of the central foreign policy and national security assets the Clinton campaign believes Hillary Clinton brings to this campaign, which is experience. Experience of what kind? That is something the Trump campaign and those on the Republican side will ask, and ask repeatedly. And Hillary Clinton, it seems to me, will have to deal with that politically as much as any other matter that is currently before her campaign.
All right, Major Garrett reporting there from the White House. Annette O'Keefe also joining us. You're just watching now. Hillary Clinton wrapping up some comments at a rally. Did not at all mention Director Comey's remarks. Again, the FBI not recommending an indictment against Secretary Clinton, and we know the Attorney General has said that she would follow the recommendations of the FBI, which will now indicate that there will not be an indictment against Secretary Clinton. But we will be watching because she is going to be boarding Air Force One with President Obama and heading to a campaign rally in North Carolina, where she's expected to campaign with the president for the very first time. We'll hopefully be hearing something about this, as Major and Ed have pointed out, Anne-Marie. Perhaps a mea culpa, perhaps even President Obama will address this, something we simply don't know.
And I certainly expect we'll be hearing something about it from Donald Trump, who is also campaigning in North Carolina a little later on today.